Hey guys, it's Becca, and I thought I would read you guys a story today. And the first book I picked is called The Guardians of the Straits by Tyler Benson. And this is one of my favorites. One rainy evening, a homeless dog, lost and without a purpose, wandered onto the grounds of a Coast Guard station in St. Ignace, Michigan. She was looking for shelter from the cold rain. She walked to the docks where a Coast Guard boat was tied up and found an open latch. The wet dog climbed aboard the boat and settled comfortably into the rescue compartment. See her? There she is. Suddenly, an alarm sounded. The hair on the dog's neck raised up, and she looked around for the source of the sound. 4 people quickly came aboard. They were members of the United States Coast Guard. Dean, the lead coastie, told the other crew members about a freighter that was in trouble. An 800-foot freighter passing through the Straits of Mackinac has 2 injured crew members aboard, said Dean. A medical evacuation has been requested. Take your positions. The other Coast Guards agreed, and with a united aye aye, they started off. The boat launched into action. The siren sounded and the Coast Guard motor lifeboat headed into Lake Huron with the dog still on board. Soon after, Hogan went into the compartment where the dog was hiding to get the emergency medical kit prepared. Seeing the man, the frightened dog backed further under the seat. As Hogan prepared the kit, an oxygen tank slipped from his hands and rolled next to the dog's paw. Hogan saw the dog and jumped back in surprise. "Where did you come from?" he asked. There they are. They're headed out to save that rescue on that mission. Just then, Evans entered the compartment and found Hogan with the dog. "Hogan," Evans said, "what is that dog doing on board?" "I don't know," Hogan said. "I found her hiding here when I came to get our rescue equipment." "Well, secure that dog," Evans said, "and get ready. The freighter is closer than we thought. It's just off the Mackinac Bridge, and we have an estimated arrival time of 10 minutes. Hogan petted the nervous dog and told her, "You stay here, girl. I'll be right back." There they are. Wonder what's going to happen next. Up on deck, Pelkey spotted the freighter. "There it is!" she shouted. "Starboard side!" As the Coast Guard boat came alongside the freighter, Pelkey got on the radio. "Motor Vessel Pride of the Lakes! Motor Vessel Pride of the Lakes!" Pelkey called to the freighter. "This is the United States Coast Guard. Prepare your injured crewmen for transfer." There she is. She's calling to the boat. Dean yelled over the wind and rain to Evans and Hogan on the bow. "Here we go, gentlemen, by the book." The men aboard the freighter frantically prepared for the transfer. They slipped and slid on the deck as they strapped their injured shipmates into stretchers. Then they carefully lowered the first injured man from the freighter deck to the coasties waiting on the rescue boat below. Despite the wind and rain, the transfer went smoothly. Do you see him? There's the injured man in the boat right there, and the Coast Guards are going to help him. I hope they're going to be okay. As the second injured crewman was being transferred, the boat was slammed by a powerful wave, and the Coast Guard boat and the freighter crashed against each other violently. Just then, lightning flashed and thunder boomed. The startled man on the freighter accidentally dropped the stretcher, and the second injured man fell helplessly into the sea. "Man overboard!" Hogan yelled. "Prepare for recovery!" Dean yelled back. Pelkey ran down to the main deck to prepare for a waterside pickup. There he is. He was falling into the water. Oh my goodness, you think he's going to be okay? I think the coasties are going to be able to do it. What do you think? Let's find out. Hogan and Evans quickly took the first injured crewman down below where he could be safe. "You stay here," Hogan said. "What about my shipmate?" the injured crewman yelled. "Don't worry, sir," Evans said. "We'll save him." Hogan and Evans quickly ran back outside. Inside the compartment, the dog watched. She heard the man yell, "Oh no! He is strapped in and face down!" The man suddenly saw the dog and made eye contact with her. Tears began to roll down the scared, worried, and injured crew member's face. He wanted to help, but he was helpless. "My shipmate is in trouble," he said to the dog. "My friend is in trouble." The dog watched it all. She saw the fear. She heard the screams, and suddenly something inside her ignited. It burned like a fire. A sensation she had never felt before washed over her. She felt a sense of greater purpose, a sense of servitude, a sense of something important and larger than herself. She knew what she needed to do. She was no longer a lost dog. She was a dog with a newfound purpose. The dog sprinted for the ladder. See, that's the first man they saved. I love dogs. We're going to find out what happens next. As the Coast Guard boat was approaching the injured man in the water, the dog saw the overturned stretcher. Seeing the dog on deck, Hogan yelled, "What are you doing out here, girl? Get back down below where it's safe." Just then, the dog let out a loud, confident bark, "Woof!" and selflessly leapt into the heavy seas. With all of her might, she swam for the man. She swam as hard as she could. She swam until it burned her in her muscles. She swam through the howling wind and the cold sea. Fear didn't stand in her way. A newfound bravery pushed her through. The coasties watched the dog swim on. Only so another may live. Look, there she is. She was so brave. She jumped into the water. That's so exciting. The dog finally made it to the man in the heavy seas. The waves dunked and the man's head up and down. He looked over and saw the dog. Cold and in shock, he yelled to her, "Help me, dog! Please help me!" The dog put her paws up on the capsized stretcher and swam with all of her might. She pushed and pushed and pushed until a miracle happened. The dog righted the stretcher, saving the man from trouble. The dog stayed with the man as the Coast Guard boat came alongside. The coasties quickly reached overboard and pulled the man and dog on board. Exhausted, dog couldn't even stand up. There she is. You see her right down there? She pushed it over so he was upside right. She's a pretty smart dog. Pelkey and Evans quickly took the injured man back down below, where his relieved shipmate was waiting. Hogan wrapped the dog in a blanket, picked her up in his arms, and headed back to the back deck of the boat. He dropped to his knees and looked at the miracle dog that he held in his arms. "Ha ha!" Dean yelled from the driver's chair. "I don't know where that dog came from, but thank goodness for her." Hogan looked up at Dean. "Onyx," he told him. "Her name is Onyx. She is like a guardian, like one of us." "I believe it," Dean said. The Coast Guard boat headed back to the station. There she is. He's taking care of her now. See her wrapped up in the boat, in the blankie? I think the story's pretty good. Do you think so too? Let's find out what happens next. Back on deck, Pelkey dropped to her knees and started petting the wet dog. The station has been looking for a good morale dog, and this hero may be just what we're looking for. Hogan stood up and Onyx stood beside him. The rain was letting up, the seas were laying down, and Hogan put a small orange life jacket on Onyx and adjusted the straps. Then he cut the excess strap off and put it around her neck, making a collar. "There," he said, "perfect. Now you look like a true Coast Guard morale dog." Pelkey smiled and nodded her head, agreeing as she headed up the ladder to the bridge to take her seat next to Dean. There she is. Look at her. She's got a rescue jacket now, just like the men and women in the boat. Dean nodded to Pelkey and said, "Onyx, huh? I like that." Dean looked forward. The storm had passed, and the rising morning sun was breaking through the clouds. Fair winds and following seas had come to the morning Straits of Mackinac. "All right, you guys," he yelled out. "Secure the deck. We're heading for home. Coming up." Dean put the throttles down and steered the Coast Guard boat for home, into the sunrise. It is a new day. It is a new beginning, for today begins the adventures of Onyx and the Guardians of the Straits. There they are, heading into the sunrise. And do you see that? That's the Mackinac Bridge. Have you been to the Mackinac Bridge? I have. It's one of my favorite places to go. Well, that's the end of our story, guys. I hope you loved it, and I'll see you soon. Mwah.